And there it is, live from Dairyland, USA, home of the greatest cheese curds known to man, perch, fried fish baskets, and bartenders that will bite your head off and make you laugh in the exact same sentence. We are coming to you live from rural Wisconsin. This is the Helping Friendly podcast. My name is Brian Brinkman. I'm here with RJB and Jonathan Hart. We've got an incredible guest who is joining us here shortly. We are talking Fish's Alpine Valley, night one of 3 recaps here today. We're going to be recapping the first show from the Alpine Valley run. RJ, Jonathan, how are you guys doing?
Well, I will say I'm not in Dairyland, but otherwise I'm okay. I want to hear more about these bartenders sometime.
I am in Dairyland. We've eaten a lot of cheese curds. You know, that's like basically the whole. That's my summary, and they're really good.
They're really good. They're more diverse than you would think they were, especially the fried ones. We ended up at a roadside bar yesterday afternoon where we all lost money playing dice, and we had an incredible bartender. Had an excellent hang. My dad played the same Warren Zevon songs 3 times in the jukebox, and then we ended up on lot, and we had a really good day. It was an awesome way to kick off a 3-night run of Fish. How about that?
You guys should see. You should see Brian's dad and Brian's brother and Brian all competing for the jukebox or the play or the phone to play music. It's something to behold for sure.
Yeah, I bet they have some interesting and maybe very similar touch tunes lists.
There's a little bit of divergence, but it all kind of comes back
overlap.
to there's a vibe around. I think Tunnel of Love is the center. Bruce Springsteen's Tunnel of Love is the central holding place of everything that we do.
That's true.
But we are here today. We are going to be joined here very shortly by our good friend, Mr. Scott Marks, on Twitter at BizArchive. One of my favorite people to talk fish with. And I don't think we have anything controversial to talk about today. I don't think Fish potentially played anything or potentially didn't play anything. We have a Bowie that might be controversial for many people for a variety of reasons. RJ made it potentially a little bit controversial yesterday with an immediate post-show tweet. We're going to get into all of that. I'm really excited for the conversation here. Before we do that, though, we need to shout out our good friends at Passion House Coffee. Here at Osiris Media, we are powered by a few things. Music, of course, but also coffee. Coffee, which I needed here this morning just immediately. We're always drinking Passion House coffee, and now we have our very own blend, the Ocean of Osiris. Please visit passionhousecoffee.com to get some of this and other coffee today. You can use the code OSIRIS, OSIRIS, for free shipping on every order. And while you're doing that, please know that we are running a contest with Passion House. Whenever Fish plays an ocean song, go ahead and tag OsirisPod at OsirisPod, as well as at Passion House Coffee on Twitter, and use hashtag Ocean of Osiris, and we will pick 2 winners at random each show. Today, we have only 1 winner, but he's a good winner. We're really, really excited about this winner. On Twitter, at BuckyBuck 2001. Uncle Buck.
I know Buck. He's a great dude. I hung out with him at Merriweather. Really good guy. Congrats, Buck.
He's got an excellent Twitter presence. He seems like a really solid dude and the kind of guy that needs to have some Passion House coffee in his life, you know?
Well, good for him. Congratulations.
Congrats to Buck. We got 6 more Fish shows this tour, which means 6 more chances for you out there. Not you, RJ, not you, Jonathan, not even me. I'm not pointing at any of us. I'm pointing at you out there in the world. 6 more chances for you to win Passion House coffee as well as if they play Sea and Sand, you will have a chance to have coffee virtually with Mr. RJB and Mr. Tom Marshall. So definitely check them out. We also want to tell you about, we've had a couple of live events that have happened this summer, and we have one final one that is closing out summer tour. Osiris Live is coming to the Larimer Lounge on Wednesday, August 31st for an evening of music and conversation with the band Taper's Choice. You can get your tickets at the link on the screen, osirispod.com/Denver. Tickets are starting to go fast for this. It seems to be a very popular event. We've got a lot of people interested. Come and check us out. Jonathan and I will be interviewing Taper's Choice, and then they will be playing a set of music. It's going to be pretty awesome. I'm extremely excited to see them. Have been listening to them a ton over the last few months. That will kick off the Dick's Run, which we have some information to tell you about here in the coming days. Finally, two quick things here for you. We have new HFPod shirts. The Helping Friendly shirt, they are very, very sick. You can get them at osirispod.highlinemerch.com. Great way to support HFPod. We've got our new logo, our new font. They're in this cool charcoal gray, really, really fun, very comfortable shirt. Definitely encourage people to check those out.
They don't look like this.
No, that is the old school. That is
cool.
the old school, the OG
old school
shirt
today.
that Jonathan is wearing. But these new ones, they're new school. They're refined.
They're sweet.
They're very sweet. I'm excited. I'm excited to show mine off at Dick's this year. And then finally, we want to tell you about our friends at Wook Plus who have great content. They do the lot pre-shows on Wednesdays throughout tour, and then they do the After Fish after show, which goes live 15 minutes post-show. You can watch both at Wook Plus on Twitter, plus on YouTube. You can search for Wook Plus. With that, I think that we should probably get into our show. Does that sound good to you guys? Let's go ahead here. We're going to bring our guest, Mr. Scott Marks, on. Scott, how are you doing here today?
I'm doing great. I could probably use some of that coffee right now, but I am doing great.
Where are we reaching you at in wonderful Dairyland?
I am in Lake Geneva, about 20 miles west of East Troy.
Awesome. You having a good stay in the Midwest?
I am. I haven't been out here in 10 years, so it's really nice being back.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into it. Our first segment of the show, in terms of covering the overall show from Alpine, is the vibe of it. What was the vibe like? This is brought to us by Section 119, which is the premier apparel brand where many fish fans shop to represent their favorite band in everyday life. There's sophisticated designs and epic quality. Section 119 offers donut-inspired button-down shirts, board shorts, dry-fit polos, and hoodies, among many more awesome clothing types. You can use code SUMMER22 for a 20% discount on your next purchase. You will absolutely love your new gear. Once again, it's 20% off with code SUMMER22. Scott, RJ, myself, we were all at this show. I think it'll be interesting to get a sense of what the vibe was like from the three of us here. Scott, what was your take in terms of the vibe of the overall show from arrival to walking in ahead of showtime?
I think there's a special magic of being at Alpine. It's kind of like a destination event in the Midwest, if you will, where everyone is trying to get out there. It's 35,000 people. So pretty much if you have a way to go and you want to go, you can. And whether you're in the pit of the pavilion or the lawn that goes on forever, you're there. And so, it's not the de facto tour closer, but because there's Dick's in a couple of weeks, but for me, this is really the tour closer. And then Dick's is kind of the coda or the epilogue to what's going on here. So this is the core where they've been playing for 22 shows, and there's going to be 22 shows by the end of the weekend, and we're finally at the finish line, where everything has kind of come together for what's gone on this summer with the evolution of the jams and the songs. And in terms of the vibe, people were just really happy to be there. It's kind of like a party atmosphere. Everyone's in a good frame of mind, a little well rested after AC, unless people went up to Toronto on Wednesday, and then they're probably not quite as rested as the rest of us, but we're ready to do it again.
Yeah, definitely had a sense like pulling in like a return. I hadn't been to Alpine since 2015. And for me on, growing up going to this venue, it felt like a return to a place where I had seen a lot of shows as a younger person. There's just like a certain magic to the way the sun hits the hills there. It's super green. It's beautiful. Obviously no vending at Alpine. So just kind of more of like a party vibe walking through the lot. RJ, what were your thoughts of it?
Yeah, it was my first time back since '97. Yeah, nothing changed since the last time, from what I remember. Like a big grassy field where you park your car, and the vending was being closely monitored. But I managed to buy a margarita from someone who made it just an excellent margarita. And I tried to find Brian and his dad and his brother and his cousin, literally all of Brian's family. And I turned down this lane and I walked all the way down, and they had gone somewhere else. And then I got to the very end, and like 6 people stopped me and were like, "Hey, you're RJ. Thanks so much for all the stuff with HFPod." And they were all Midwestern people, and it was so nice to see like fans. I'm used to hearing fans say that on like the East Coast, but it's nice to connect with Wisconsin and Illinois and Ohio people who appreciate what we do. So that was really awesome. I really appreciated that.
I love how walking into Alpine, there's just a sense that, like, as you said, the venue feels like it's just trapped in time. There are certain amenities that have been improved. Obviously, like it's a cashless place. It's kept up in that sort of sense. But like the shed looks like it's like had minor modifications over the years. The porta potties around the pavilion are just like completely sloped down. The vending is just like as simple and straightforward as it once was. Once you're inside, it's just like an archetype. It's just like trapped in like the 80s and 1990s. It's a really incredible shed to go to. It feels like you've stepped back into a different period in rock history. So the band walks on stage right around, I think I tracked it at 7:38. It was just
It was
after.
way early, right? I thought it was going to be like an 8 o'clock show. Did you guys expect it? When they came out, I think everyone was surprised, but happily surprised.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was going to be an 8 o'clock show, and I was going to get food. And I was in the pit, and one of my friends was like, "It's a 7:30, or ticket time was 7 o'clock," and so I'm like, "Oh, all right, I guess I'll wait till set break." And then it was a bit of a shit show, but yeah. So I think they're a little understaffed with some of the vendors there, or just like the if I went to Page side of the lawn, they had like 3 people running the entire food thing, and just it's kind of like the sign of the times where people are looking for workers, but they did a good job with everybody coming in, and so definitely a earlier start time, and had to adjust, and now at least I can prepare a little better for tonight, tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be nice knowing that like there's a lack of vending, knowing that like the start time is a little earlier. I'm going to be able to time it a little bit better in terms of my arrival and just like getting in and everything, which is kind of the nice thing about a 3-night run is you use the first night to kind of figure out your logistics, and then you settle in properly going into it. Jonathan, from at home, what was the vibe like for you? Did you have a good evening couch touring?
Actually, I went across the street and had some drinks with a couple friends, and then came home right in the middle of Twist. So, pretty good vibe.
It's a good way to kick it off.
On the first set openers this morning, but I had a good time here on the sofa.
Well, let's dive into the first set from a highlight standpoint. So we have Fuego, Clear Your Mind, into Twist, into Haley's Comet, into Destiny Unbound, the Moma Dance, and Drift While You're Sleeping. Scott, what was your overall highlight from set 1 of last night's show?
So the clear highlight for me is Moma Dance. or for people that call my typo on Twitter and had fun with the Mona Dance. It's funny how like I'm thumbing these things out really quickly, and if I get like one letter wrong, I'll get like Mona from Who's the Boss and Mona Lisa, and just like everything under the sun. People have the best time with it. And so I'm kind of looking back at like the tweets like hours later. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like you can't delete the tweet at that point because it's been around for so long. But no, with I digress. So Moma Dance, like you look at the amount of times that it's gone type 2 or have been jammed out. Like the first big one was Worcester in 03, which kind of stayed in that type 1 territory. But then you had in my opinion, the GOAT from SPAC 2016, which is kind of the one that I hold the measuring stick to for everything else. I want to say, going off memory here, so I may be completely wrong, but the Baker's Dozen, I think, had one that got jammed out a bit. And I want to say maybe one from last fall, but I'm not entirely sure on that. I feel like there's at least one more that I'm not aware of. But I mean, you're looking at basically
AC last summer had a really good one in the first set.
It. So we're looking at maybe 4 or 5 or 6 out of 60, 70, 80 of these that have been played. So it's super rare. And I was like with Haley's or with AC/DC Bag or Tube or Roses, it's always like Charlie Brown and the football blues scene. Like, are they gonna do it? They're gonna do it. And then like Trey starts to jam out a little bit. I'm all set to fire something off, but I now after AC where they did the 555 that went like a minute of jamming, I got all excited for it, and then I got burned on. I just kind of wait a little bit longer now to open my mouth and like, all right, they're really doing this. And so it had a bunch of levels to it and went 18 minutes. And I realized that like 18 minutes is just it's a timestamp. It's nothing. You could have a jam that goes nowhere over 18 minutes, but this had a bunch of levels to it, and then it came back home at the end. It was fantastic. I haven't had a chance to listen to it again, but it's one that I really enjoyed last night. And the other highlights I think were you got your first Fuego opener since 2014 in Vegas, and the Clear Your Mind, the twist I enjoyed, and you kind of had a sense that there was a chance they were going to be messing around with stuff last night because they're quoting Clear Your Mind in the intro for Twist, and then Fishman had the lyrics later on, and so then it was kind of a foreshadowing of set 2 a little bit.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question about the jams. I felt like we've talked about this a few times, where like the kind of bliss peaks where Trey was like pushing those pretty early last night in Fuego and in Twist. Scott, do you think that's it's a comfortable place for them, obviously, and it's like it doesn't seem. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's great for the crowd, and it's like easy for them to kind of just build a peak, and then they kind of were doing it over and over. But I think we've discussed in the past that is like it's a little bit of not necessarily a crutch, but like something that they can go to easily, like in contrast to some of the more like space rock weird stuff they've been doing this tour. Like, do you see it as, I don't know, better, worse, easier, harder, like, or is it just part of the whole way that everything flows?
Well,
that makes sense?
As somebody who's not a professional musician, I have to digress a little bit here. I played trombone for over a decade, so it's not like I don't know anything about music outside what I'm listening to. For me, like if I had a preference, I absolutely love the high energy peaks, like the Atlantic Sea Ruby Waves, where like I go back to that show, and that's one of the things I think of right off the bat. But then like right after that, you had the Ghost from that night where they went into a lot of different areas, which they're not accustomed for that song. So I think they've used it a lot. I think it's always a crowd pleaser, and it never fails to put a huge smile on my face when I'm hearing it or watching it. But I think it's probably easier for them to do that than having something that's more complex. The spaced out stuff or whatever. So where you have multiple levels that are going in many directions, as opposed to one where there's just like a gradual building, and then it gets to that huge ferocious peak at the end, and maybe there's another peak, like a little mini musical mountain range, if you will. But yeah, I think it's definitely easier for them to do that.
Yeah, I felt like the MoMA gave you this kind of like two sides of it, because there was certainly exploration once they've got fully out of the MoMA dance and allowed them to kind of play two or three segments of music there, where there was just a lot of like back and forth musical communication. And for a while, I felt like we weren't going to go towards any sort of a peak, but then they kind of locked into a riff and they built it at that point in time, and it created this very satisfying moment from a crowd standpoint, from a listening standpoint. You could see the audience just like react in a just fully engaged way, and the band loves that, the fans love that. But it was great to have that in a rare song in there, like a rare jamming song in the first set. Just raised the excitement overall. I'm right there with you, Scott, in terms of like in the first just like the way that this show opened up, it felt unexpected. Fuego being kind of a rare opener, like it in that slot, got a little bit of exploration in the Fuego. Clear Your Mind, it was the first Sci-Fi Soldier song that I've seen live. It was great to get something like that in the first set. That felt a little bit expansive, didn't really leave the theme, but the band was just kind of playing around and they felt loose in terms of space. Twist kind of came out of nowhere in that sort of standpoint. And then Destiny Unbound is, just one of those songs. I don't recall the last time I got a Destiny Unbound, but it's something I've heard maybe two or three times. And there's always that 22803 moment that you get whenever you hear it, where it just feels special, especially in the room.
Well, you had Moma Dance was the longest song of the night, and it's not often you could go looking at a show and sing at the jam of the night, or at least time wise, is in the first set. It happens occasionally, and it's not taking a shot at anything happened in the second set. It was just just by the numbers, I guess. And seeing a Twist pop up 3 songs in the first set was a welcome surprise. You're kind of used to seeing that midway through the second set, in the middle, like a big jam sandwich, if you will, and just seeing it show up there was fantastic. And you're right, Destiny Unbound, whether you've seen it 1, 2, or 10 times, is always a gift. I still get goosebumps thinking about the Nassau show, where if you go back and listen to the Live Fish recording, you can hear the excitement. I'm kind of getting goosebumps now just talking about it. But you can hear the crowd once they realize what's going on, how excited they're getting. And some people knew it right from the get-go with the first couple notes, and other people, once the Highway Bill lyrics came on, they knew what was going on. And you have a song that had been chased by virtually the entire Fish community for over 700 shows from 91 to 2003, and now it's like we get it once or twice a year. And so we're fortunate to have the song back. It was the first time they played it this year, and it's always a treat. And now, of course, you have that little Live and Let Die thing that's been added in at the end for one reason or another. But like every time you hear, you'll hear Mike playing that riff. I won't say it for the sake of our listeners, but it's there. Trust me.
Jonathan, from the couch, what were your thoughts on this first set? What were your highlights?
Well, as I said, I missed the first part of it, but I want to talk about that. I was listening to it this morning, and I like the Fuego as an opener. It's kind of big rock kind of statement. I think it was interesting to put 2 songs back to back that were collaboratively written. You can really tell the character of these songs that the whole band contributes to, with Fuego and then Clear Your Mind. There's a flavor in those lyrics that you don't get in a in a Trey Tom composition or what have you. And I like the way it flowed into Twist. It was really groovy. But I'm with you guys. The Moma Dance is my highlight. That I went back to that just before I came upstairs to sit down and do this, and it's a great solid version. Good jam in it. It doesn't really lose the groove, like it moves away from the Moma Dance groove per se, but it's always very danceable. and strong peak, and a lot of fun. So great, like penultimate number for the set.
Yeah, yeah, and it worked well to like when it finished before it went into drift. I kind of it had that impact of kind of making the first set feel slightly disorienting because at the time that MoMA started, you kind of just figured we were getting like a string of high energy songs, and we would probably get 9 to 12 songs throughout the set, close out with something, and then we'd go into the set break. But because it was nearly 20 minutes and then you put drift on the back end of that, the final two songs of the first set end up being 30 plus minutes and takes up a good amount of real estate. And when they started drift, I was like, is this going to be midway through the first set? Is this going to close out the set? I don't exactly know where I'm at. Time kind of loses its sort of meaning at that point. And I always like that effect of being in a show where the structure and the rigidity of an actual rock concert, where like there's a time to walk on stage, there's a time for the set break, there's a time for curfew, you kind of lose that as a result of a jam being stretched out unexpectedly.
I think it's a good sign when you're in the show and you lose track of, is this going to be the end, or you just don't know. I think they're doing something right.
Yes,
I knew right off the bat that drift was going to close the set just because it's become that set
that
closer.
spot.
It's like Santos is usually in the encore now, or it's going to close a set. And so I would have actually have been surprised if drift didn't close the set.
That's a good point.
I am neck deep in set lists every night with this band. So like I'm putting this, I'm either looking at the set list on .net or reviewing it, or I'm at the show. And so I, tied with the analytical mind, I know, what's going on. And I also have the times in the journal. So I'm looking at it and it's, all right, it's been 62 minutes. This is probably going to close the set. But I'd love to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes they just get into that zone where, or Slave's going to close a set, but the real big ones are drift. I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like that's been almost entirely a set closer for most of its history.
I knew it was going to close sitting here at home, but Brian not writing timestamps down in a set list, probably I could see losing track of that. But yeah, drift was going to close, and it's a good way to end a set. It's got a great big finish on it, and carry off in a set break.
Lots of yellow lights beaming off of people with their arms up, just screaming, "We move through stormy weather" with the band. It's become a very heroic and triumphant way to close out a set for the band at this point in time.
I wonder if they realize, or if Kuroda still realizes that Fishman hates the yellow lights. I remember like in '98, they specifically had yellow light on him for his son because he said he hated it. And so I wonder sometimes if they're still trolling him 20 years later.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to get into some Fishman humor here in set 2, but before we do that, we do need to jump into the set break segment of the show to talk through what set break was like for all of us. And this is brought to us by our friends here at Sunset Lake CBD. Jonathan, do you want to tell us a bit about Sunset Lake CBD?
Do I? I do. Can you hear me okay? I got a note to turn my mic up, so I just turned it up a little bit. So let's see if you can hear this. I will tell you that Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products are for our old deadheads and young fish fans searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis without the paranoid and anxious side effects. With 9 different strains from this year's harvest, there is something for everyone. The Hawaiian Haze is awesome for an outdoor show, and Cherry Abacus is best for the end of the night. All the flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. And even better, Sunset Lake CBD's farm-to-table approach gets you great pricing on premium CBD flower, shipping directly from their farm to your door right now. out there in the postal universe is a package coming from their farm to my door, and I can't wait for my restock. You can get yours too by checking them out today at sunsetlakecbd.com. Use our coupon code HFPod for 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer owned, Vermont grown. And before we talk about set break and kicking back with our Sunset Lake CBD, I think RJ might want to talk about first set too.
I just want to add a couple of things. One is that well, first of all, this is a whole different topic, which we can discuss at a later time or never. But the Sci-Fi Soldier songs, I'm still like, I was at Halloween. I'm still like coming around to them. I don't love them, and when they play them, I'm like, okay, I understand why they play them, and I understand why they have this place in sort of the history of this band, but they're still not hitting me. I just want to tell you guys that because I want to be transparent and honest with all of you today.
I think,
Brian, you
Sorry.
kick
Go
it
ahead,
out of
Scott.
podcast now.
Yeah. What do you think, Scott?
I think it's sometimes it takes time to get used to the songs. Like I listened to I was at the Sci-Fi Soldier set for everything that's gone down, and it was a lot to take in at the time, and now you're getting it in bits and pieces. Like the songs are being sound checked, and so they're kind of feeling them out. And when you start to see them showing up in sets, they kind of either get used to them or maybe you still hate them or whatever. But like the Howling falls into, it can easily fit into a set. It has like that 2001 feel, and I'm just waiting for the day where those two songs get mashed up together. There was a show in Syracuse in 2016 where they had the Timber.
Yeah.
And so like it's just like a complete fan nerd dream that like they would mix those two songs up or whatever, but they're so similar.
There's a lot of that. I was thinking about Clear Your Mind this morning, and it has a little character of, lyrically Wombat, but musically a little Sneak and Sally kind of vibe, and they could kind of ping pong between those. There's my mashup.
And you have any of these songs that could become a jam vehicle. It hasn't hit Sci-Fi Soldier yet, but it certainly hit the Lonely Trip songs. With Sigma Oasis. I never did you like this before, and so I'm reserving judgment on how these are going to formally fit into the set list because like you had the Halloween show, and then there was nothing at the Ninth Cube, and I think maybe two songs in Mexico, Clear Your Mind, and maybe the Howling showed up, so not a lot, and so they're slowly showing up in the set list here and there. I feel like Kazvat Vox had a much bigger impact. Like when the New Year's run happened a few months later, you had like 4 or 5 songs out of like the 12 that were there. And I think they're more like rock songs. Like Say It To Me Santos has become like an arena rock standard for the band, where we'll see how these songs can work, but the Howling can easily be a 2001 alternative where it's showing up every couple of shows, and it's not very complex lyrics, obviously, but the band loves it, the crowd loves it, and you had the full moon last night, so it's kind of like a slam dunk for that to appear.
Yeah, it seemed like we were getting the Howling. I think we talked about it in the parking lot, Brian. The other thing I was just going to say about the first set is the Haleys. You can feel the crowd like just wanting Haleys to jam, and like when Trake, it just goes on for that extra 16 measures or whatever, and then like people like slowly get more and more hyped, and then it's like, is it going there? Is it going there? And then it dropped into Destiny, which I thought was a great segue. Also,
you're watching.
Go ahead, Scott.
Sorry, you're watching like you're listening to the chords go up a little bit, and then it's like if you're up closer, if you're watching the screens, you're just looking for Trey to look over to the band or hand motions. Like I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop. So I didn't want to get too excited yet, but I was like, all right, this is,
well,
we're close, but like, get me beyond the chords going up and then talk to me.
Was it?
But everyone was so excited. It was like, yeah, it's higher and higher and higher and higher, and then Destiny.
Was it in any way different last night? As I was wondering this watching, and I listened back this morning, and I don't think it was. It sounded like a pretty standard Haley's, but in the moment, maybe it just felt really exciting that he kept pointing up and looking at Mike and going up an octave, and the crowd would just like react like crazy every time he did that. And then he got as high up on the register of his guitar, there was no place further to go. The only place to go is to go to another song or to jam. It just felt like the crowd was eating up that moment, the band was eating it up. It felt primed for like, okay, let's go off and do a Haley's jam and everyone's going to lose it. Destiny felt like the best song that you could pick in that moment because of how rare it is, because it's the type of song that like brings back so many, great memories from a Fish standpoint. But I don't know if you noticed that, Scott, if it in any sort of way that was unique to that segment, or if it was kind of just the same level of excitement that you get.
I mean, I don't have other versions to sit back and compare it to, but it just seems like anytime you're going to have those chords or octaves, that general ascending music, you're going to get a lot of crowd enjoyment. But again, the football was waiting to be kicked, and Trey was ready to steal it away from us. So, I didn't want to get too tricked on it, but it was definitely on my mind. Like, we were rapidly approaching that, the 6-minute mark. Is this going to happen or not? And then, unfortunately, it didn't happen last night. But the end was still such high energy, and the crowd definitely ate up. I was very excited with it.
I relate greatly to your protecting your emotions in those moments. You don't want to get too excited.
It's something that's come up a lot on this show, this tour, and we'll talk more about it in set 2. But with respect to this, Haley's not jam. If you're going to not jam, dropping into Destiny Unbound is a pretty good trade-off, I think.
Yeah,
for sure. Brian, before we get into set 2, can I just say one thing about a comment we had earlier?
Yeah.
From YouTube that said the vibe for women was different yesterday. There are a lot of women complaining about how a lot of men were behaving. This happens too often, especially on summer tours, should be addressed. And just wanted to highlight that and say that Groove Safe, which is an amazing organization nationally, and all the people who are involved are doing a great job trying to spread awareness of this and stop these kinds of things from happening. So check out groovesafe.org. Donate, support them so they can go to more shows and spread the word and get more people educated about how to behave properly at shows. Not that we should need it, but it seems like some people do. So I just wanted to mention that.
I mean, it's not just summer tour either. I mean, it's all the shows it's happening, and I mean, I think that there's a lot more awareness now than there was before Ashley got involved, and she and the Groove Safe team have done such a fantastic job with it. And it's not just for the Fish community either. She's, spearhead this for a lot of other bands, and it's definitely a problem, and we need to keep raising awareness of it so that the Fish experience is safe and enjoyable for everybody. It's unfortunate that this keeps happening, to say the least.
Absolutely. So, Scott, did you have any great adventures during set break as you were transitioning from set 1 to set 2, or did you just hang out, check your Twitter DMs for any sort of backlash to misspelled words or footballs being pulled out from under you?
My grand adventure was to get food. Because I had missed out on that before the show, and I just didn't have it in me to wait a few more hours. And the lot in Alpine is notorious for being hard to get out of, and so I figured if I didn't eat anything, then I wouldn't be eating anything until like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't do it.
No.
So yeah, I mean, usually I'll just stick around my spot. I don't like dealing with the crowds. I didn't like dealing with it before COVID, and even now. I'm not claustrophobic, but I would just rather have my space. And so I'll often just kind of sit there or stand there and decompress everything that's going on during the first set. And well, I decompressed while standing in the food line last night. So we do what we need to do, but no, it was no real adventures. Fine with
Brian, I did have a grand adventure, which was trying to find you, and I misunderstood which row you were in, and I was in a very confused state, as I mostly am at fish shows because I'm just disoriented. But I walked all the way. There's only 3 sections, right? And each row, the row is 100 seats. So like once you go into a row, you're basically committing to walking by 100
You're
people.
lost.
And I went down the road that I thought was yours all the way to the end, and I stopped, and these people next to me, I sat down. They're like, just take a seat. And I'm like, I don't think I can do it. And they're like, you can do it. You can get to the end. It's not that far. And then I walked down like 5 more seats, and Joel Cummins was sitting there with his wife. So I got to say hi to him and ran into him like very randomly, but I'd never found you. So I did like a whole loop and then just went back to my seat.
I will just say, if I can I admit something on this podcast? There's nobody actually listening or watching. I can say something to just the 3 of you guys.
Private group of
just
people
private
here,
group
yeah.
chat.
We're just kids here. Go for it.
So Moma starts, and I realize, okay, I don't know how much more we have left of this first set. I'm gonna have to use the restroom. I've heard like 100 Momas in my life. I can listen to this from the bathroom line, right? And I remember thinking immediately, like, if this jams, I'll be back in time. So and I hate leaving my seat at set break. I hate it
This
because
is the eternal gamble that you're describing.
The
I love
eternal
this.
gamble.
We've all
I love
been
this.
there at least once, if not many times. So please tell us how it plays out.
I turned to my buddy and I
Did you
said,
make
"Hey,
it back by set 2?
I made it back in 3 minutes. It was perfect. I ran up, got into a very quick line, relieved myself, ran back down, considered getting food, but then thought better of it. Got back down. They were still playing Moma Dance, and I was able to soak in the entire jam, take in drift, which meant that at set break, I did the one thing that I love doing, which is just sitting down in my seat, having a good conversation, taking in my thoughts, and then standing up when it's time for the band to come back on stage. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to do anything during set break. I don't want to go and stand in a food line. Everybody's just like running up to go use the bathrooms to get food, and I just want to be able to like sit down and take it all in. So I was very thankful for that. My set break was boring in the way I like it.
I think the destiny played into your calculation there. I think that gave you an advantage because
It's a good point.
people ran back and they definitely weren't running out during destiny.
It's a good point. That's a good point. So why don't we jump into set 2 here and cover this? So we've got Ass Handed into Set Your Soul Free, into Golden Age, into Lonely Trip, into Ghost, into The Howling, into Simple, into David Bowie, before an encore of The Lizards and more. Scott, a lot of good highlights throughout this second set. What was your big highlight of the set?
That's tough. I had a few. If I'm looking at the set list and memories, the first thing that stuck out obviously was Ass Handed, where they extended it like they did in Vegas last year. You know, it's still only 5 minutes, but to see a song that's really notes and lyrics, and to have that jammed out a bit is always fun. The Golden Age had a really high energy, and I this is a loaded response, and so for like the 5 people that are listening, they might have some comments, but the Bowie stood out, and I say this where it's not looking at your fall 94 or 95 Bowies where they were 25, 30 minutes long and really got out there, but super exploration, just like the Mount Rushmore of David Bowie's, if you will. But I feel like there aren't a lot of David Bowies in the 3.0, 4.0 era that go out there. And like I was listening, and they were in type 2. They're completely off the musical reservation, and I was surprised when the song ended that it was only 12 minutes long. And you're looking at these 30, 40-minute Bowies from almost 30 years ago. And it's just a reminder that you don't need a song to go 20, 25, 30, 35 minutes to be epic. You could have it something where it, even as long as this was, it still got out there. Really, everything in the set outside of Lonely Trip had jams in it, and Lonely Trip was like just a quick breather, and then they got back on the horse, and Ghost Howling, Simple, Bowie. It would have been nice to have had a longer Simple, but I just love the set list in that second set. Very strong choices, and it all fit together pretty well, and I loved it. Great opening set 2 for the weekend.
We've seen this balance throughout the summer 2022 tour where some sets are similar to last night's second set, where there's not like one big capstone improvisational piece. There's improvisation kind of scattered throughout the set, versus say like Atlantic City Night 3, where you've got like the Wave of Hope and You Enjoy Myself as like really meaty improvisation, and then around it kind of more standard performances. I don't know exactly, like I think my preference tends to go to like, I'd rather hear like one really big 20 to 25 minute deep exploration. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got one before the end of this weekend. But it was really nice, especially for the first set 2 of a 3-night run, to just like hear improvisation kind of scattered throughout. And even though it didn't go past like 12, 13 minutes in many cases, you got a lot of diversity in the playing. Like Set Your Soul Free goes into this very melodic, blissful state. And then just a few songs later, Ghost goes into this very aggressive jam. And you get this very significant pocket of improvisation in David Bowie, plus the Ass Handed, the Golden Age. Like you just had it kind of balanced throughout the overall set. RJ, what were your big highlights and what were your thoughts on it?
I mean, I really like the extra little jam on Ass Ended. It's like that bodes well to me for this, like what we keep talking about, what song is going to get jammed out next. It reminds me a little bit of like the Axilla 2, getting stretched out over the past year or so. So I just think that's a cool thing and shows that they're willing and able to just kind of like push any song further. The Set Your Soul Free, I felt like it felt like a lot of searching in that jam, like especially toward the end, and some people around me were like started to sit down, and then the Golden Age started, and it kind of brought everyone back up, which I thought was interesting. And I love Lonely Trip so much. I love that song. They could play it every show, and I'd be extremely happy. But the Bowie, I made a lot of people angry on the internet by saying that was the best Bowie that I've seen. And I did qualify by saying I don't think it was the best Bowie they've ever played, but I looked at every Bowie that I've seen in 26 years, and I feel pretty confident that might have been the best one, because I missed like Fall 94. I didn't see one in Fall 95. I'd missed some of like the 03 Bowie. I'm confident looking back at my list that it's in the at least top 3 Bowies I've ever seen.
I looked at your list
Jonathan.
too, and I think you're right.
Yes. Thank you. A lot of people told me I was objectively wrong, which I don't think. But if you're objectively wrong with your opinions, then I guess that leaves me at a loss for words about life. But it was so cool. There were so many different parts of that Bowie, and it didn't let up at the end. Trey nailed the trilling, nailed the end, and I will say before I forget, the Lizards. I think he hit every single note, and I'm not like a monitor Trey for hitting notes person, but when it happens on a song like Lizards, it's really cool, and it brought a lot of emotion out, I think, from like the people around me, at least. It was really cool to see. So I thought I agree with you, Brian. I think it was like good table setting for the weekend. And yeah, I mean, the segues were incredible. There was no break in the second set in terms of the segues, which I thought was really cool. So a really fun night. I wish I could stay for 2 more nights.
Scott, I have a question just because you were closer than I was. I've webcasted every show this tour. Last night was my first night there. I seem to notice last night that Trey has removed the microphone that is right next to Fishman's kit that he was talking into for their in-ear monitors to like suggest the next song. And it appeared from where I was standing that he was turning off his mic to the crowd and talking into his actual mic for song changes, maybe key changes. Did you notice that as well? Is that something new as of today?
I didn't catch it last night, but I've definitely seen the microphone next to Fishman throughout the tour. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he changed it up a little bit, but I didn't notice it last night. The one thing I did notice, if we're talking about things that are a little out of the norm, and I'm going to shift it back to the first set, because I just catch these things. But Mike had walked out with a pair of glasses on.
Yes.
And so I didn't have great reception out at Alpine and didn't get the joke until about 2:00 in the morning. But Renee had taken a picture of Mike and Paige backstage wearing the same shirt and wearing glasses. And I'm not sure if Mike wears glasses or if they were smart people glasses, if you will. But so they came out on stage and like I didn't take a lot of pictures last night, but they're wearing the same shirt in the first set at the very least. And so just kind of trolling Paige, I guess, on stage. I don't know if I wasn't sure if he was expecting Mike to walk out with the same shirt. But it was kind of funny to just look at the photos and like, wait a minute.
Well,
Yeah,
they
posted Mike posted the picture of the two of them during set break, but then when he came out, he had changed shirts, so he wasn't wearing.
All right, so it was
set.
set break, not before the show. Okay.
Yeah, but clearly he was,
right.
I was actually watching Between Me and My Mind not too long ago, and Mike does wear glasses sometimes. But he was constantly like he had them on when he looked at a piece of gear in his studio, and then he quickly took them off and folded them up, and then he put them back on. It's like he was.
Yeah, they were on for about like 2 minutes in Fuego, and you blinked and they were gone. I was just like, wait a minute, I know you wore glasses. So.
A couple thoughts. First, we need to give props to Austin for an excellent, I think you should leave reference. Very complicated shirts worn on stage, which means that they're probably about $1,500 to $2,000. Also, I'm just thinking about this now. So before the second set, someone threw Trey a Pepe Le Pew shirt, which he showed off to the crowd, which the crowd went insane.
Got in Raleigh with the doc.
No, this was like just like Pepe Le Pew's face on it. And then Trey hung it.
It was a winking Pepe Le Pew. There were at least 4 or 5 people in the pit, all wearing the same shirt.
Oh, cool.
Maybe between like in front of Fishman, I guess. And so they tossed a shirt up there. Paige let Trey know the shirt was there, and then Trey had it on his monitor for the rest of the show.
And Jonathan, just Brian, quickly, if anyone has seen the shirt that Jonathan has and that I have, which is Pepe Le Pew holding a Languedoc, Mr. Dude is the name of the person who makes it, and it's really awesome. And I think everyone should have one. It's one of my favorite new shirts, but that's not what we're talking about. Sorry.
It's a good shirt.
Well, I was just going to say, with like respect to joking, which Fish does occasionally, and 90s relics, really the only way to up the ante here with the glasses is for everyone to come out on stage wearing glasses and Fishman to come out wearing his rec specs that he used to wear in the mid 1990s. That's the only way to to cap off this weekend, apparently. But I digress. Jonathan, from the couch, what was your big highlight of set 2?
I really love this set, actually. I was reading during it. My new thing during Couch Tour is just like at the show, I'm not watching the lights. So I occasionally put the book down and go, what the hell are they doing up there? And one of the times I did that was when Ass Handed went over a minute and a half. And and I was really excited for that. I really liked the quiet, spacey bit of Set Your Soul Free. Shermith mentions that in a comment too. I thought that was beautiful, and I was like wondering for a minute, are they going to do Beneath the Sea of Stars here, or but they didn't, and that was fine and good. Golden Age was great, and the whole set, as you guys have all said, flowed really nicely. Lonely Trip was lovely. Howling, well placed, very expected. And yeah, the David Bowie is my highlight. I think that, we've talked about David Bowie a lot this year, and I think that Scott kind of encapsulated the thoughts that I have about it doesn't have to be a massive Bowie to be a good Bowie. I still want a massive David Bowie. The fact is, they haven't done a lot of even particularly very good Bowies in 3.0, 4.0 until very recently. And they've been getting better and better. They, a couple pre COVID, I mean, they weren't even necessarily landing them very well. Now they're doing all of the structural bits properly with high energy and putting jams into it. So we're really getting to the point where by Dix, I'm looking forward to a new Mount Rushmore David Bowie. But in the meantime, I will happily take one of these. This was good jamming, and it is what I want more of. And I don't really expect the Mount Rushmore Bowies, except for Dix. These are outstanding and kind of go in with all of the like assorted jams we get throughout this whole second set.
One thing I was noticing about the Bowie is that, in the 90s, you get like during the compose section with each little break in the song, you get like a kind of a serious crash from the band, and the lights, and it would be like you'd see all those segments as separate sort of pieces. And like last night I was watching it during the compose part, and it's kind of just like a long groove now, but they did like hit it all, but there's not like the exclamation points in between the sections like there used to be. But once they got into the jam, it was really coherent. I thought it was just amazing.
Yeah, it's also interesting to me that if you listen to a lot of the big Bowies from 94 through, let's call it 97, when they drop out of the composed segment, that big chord where you get like the purple and green and blue lights and it kind of quiets down. That's around the time that the jam would come in. And now they're kind of like playing through that kind of muted, kind of eerie section before they go into the return. So the jam comes out of a very unique place. It gets very melodic, it gets very upbeat. And I was listening back to it a couple of times this morning. I think it's about 2.5 to 3 minutes of sustained improv outside of David Bowie. I felt very much like how Scott felt during the Haley's Comet, where I heard Trey play a different chord and I immediately I fist pumps up. I was like yelling. I was all happy. And then I was like, wait, restrain yourself. This has happened before. They may just go back in. This may just be like one stray chord and they're going to find their way back in. And it was probably like 30 or 40 seconds of like waiting to like actually celebrate. And then when I realized we're in totally uncharted terrain, I got really, really happy, but I knew at that point, like we're coming towards the end of things. So it's not going to go off for 20 minutes, but at least this is kind of on par with like that first AC/DC bag jam that they did at the Man Night 2 this earlier in the summer.
So this is something I mentioned or referenced earlier that I wanted to come back to, which is that because you were at the show, you were unable to send me a text the minute David Bowie went slightly off script and completely jinx us. So, but I thought about it from the sofa. I was like, Brian can't text me. Will it go? And then I thought, did I jinx it? And I saw on Twitter somebody else is like, this might be it. I'm like, just settle down. It'll happen. Just, you can't like say it's going during the jam or it just doesn't. Like, I guarantee if we go back through Twitter, there's 8 or 10, 20, 30, 50 people going, oh, will this Haley's go? No. But thanks. Maybe next time.
Overall, I thought it was a really strong set. I think my overall impression is that it just kind of set the foundation really nicely for what could be an excellent weekend. lot of cool improv scattered throughout. Anyone have any final thoughts on the second set or on the encore before we get to our last segment of the show?
I just want to say that I love More so much, and I just it's probably like top 5 songs for me to hear live at this point, which is kind of fucked up and strange. But I just love that song so much. I think it's like I love it as a second, like a More encore by itself is like slightly disappointing probably, but like after something, it's just, I think it's a great way to send people out into the night.
Ever since
I
Kelly Morris did
thought of
the
you when
Be
they went
More
to it.
Now video, it's definitely had a different impact on me with everything that was going on in the country at the time. And this video came out, and it's very special.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to get. You should never say never, but I don't think it's going to be a jammed out song. But it's just something that has a good amount of meaning to me. It's dear to my heart, and it's nice to have it show up in the show.
Agree. It took me a while with that song, but for some reason last year the line, I guess it's never really over, even when it's over, just like hit me like a ton of bricks. I think it's one of the coolest turn of phrases that they have, and listening to that live, you start to be really reflective, and I think it's got a real powerful moment. So our last segment for the show is the free lasting highlight of the show. This is brought to us by our friends at Fans for Racial Equity, which seeks to build an anti-racist live music scene and promote liberation through racial equity in the world at large by activating the collective power of our overall community. By facilitating thoughtful engagement around race and its intersection with other issues, Free empowers fans to challenge discrimination and systemic oppression wherever they see it. To get involved in Free's education, outreach, and community partnership programs, sign up to volunteer at the link on your screen, fansforracialequity.org, or you can share in the groove at the free table during a show. They will be at every venue. There's 2 more for the rest of the summer tour. So check them out at Alpine. They're up on the lawn in the kind of in like the cabin looking area where there's a bunch of vending. They're inside of there, and they will be at Dick's again this year. So in the spirit of the free lasting highlight of the show, Scott, imagine we're 5-10 years from now and we're looking back on this concert. What do you think is the highlight that people will be listening back to?
Moma Dance. Easily the Moma Dance.
RJ, is it free, or excuse me, is it More, or is it Moma Dance?
It's David Bowie for me. I'm going to keep going back to it because I need to keep defending my internet opinion. So I'm just going to stick to that. There's no going back now.
Bowie's up there for sure, but I think the Moma is just really.
Moma's pretty incredible. Yeah, pretty incredible. Really, really good. And then first set, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but just the fact that there's a first set jam that's going to be, the lasting jam, I think makes this whole thing much more exciting, that can kind of happen anywhere with any song. That's been happening a lot this tour. I just think it's really exciting.
Agree. Jonathan, what do you think is the lasting highlight of the show?
I don't know if Ass Handed went 2 more minutes, I might say that, but I think it's the MoMA, but I will say the first thing I went back and listened to last night when it dropped onto Live Fish was that David Bowie, and the first thing I'm going to listen to this afternoon when we're done here is the David Bowie. So I could be lying, but I'm sticking with MoMA.
Yeah, I think it's MoMA as well. I think it's just like a hyper connected jam in a surprise spot. It tends to be. I don't know if this is the best version of MoMA from a jamming standpoint that we've ever heard. I would need to go back and re-listen to a few, but in the moment it felt fully connected. It felt like one of those things where it's so interesting on this tour. The band is jamming so much, and you can really tell though when they hit a jamming space where it's just hyper connected. There's no stopping them, and they just keep going and keep going, and the conversation just keeps unraveling. And it felt the most pure in MoMA versus other jamming points in the show, where they just nothing was going to stop them from building up to a massive peak. So I think that will be something we'll be listening to a lot in the near future.
It is the longest one if you take the live fish timing and compare it to the jam
Interesting.
charts. It's the longest, not by much. I don't know if it's the best. That would take some research, but it's a good one.
It's a great one. This was a good Friday night show at Alpine Valley. Fish's first show at Alpine since 7/14/2019, which is a pretty famous show for a variety of reasons. Scott, thank you so much for taking some time here and hanging with us. You will be back tomorrow to hang with us to cover night 2 of Alpine. And I'm really excited that we're getting you back to back, because I want to hear how you and I kind of either differentiate or are aligned in terms of hearing these first 2 shows at Alpine. It should be a ton of fun to compare and contrast.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian, RJ, and John. It's fantastic to be with you guys, and looking forward to coming back tomorrow.
And Scott, thanks so much for coming in person last Sunday at the Water Wheel charity fundraiser / fish discussion / music event. It was great to have you there. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, that was great too. I'm glad there's no Shaftygate to discuss today, but a little more of a mild set list than what we were talking about last time. But I'm glad.
Well, there's always tonight.
For sure. Yeah.
I was just going to say, there's one more chance that Fish would give you.
Be careful with my words here.
Yeah. Have fun at the shows. Have fun at the rest of the shows, Scott and Brian and Jonathan. I miss you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Scott.
you. Thank you, everyone, for hanging with us here today. We will see you back here tomorrow for another episode of HFPod on tour, covering night 2 of Fish's Alpine Valley run in 2022. Till then, take care, everyone.